Welcome to Heels, Handbags, and Hustle. Step in faith, carry love, pursue God's calling. This is your host, Rachel Earp, and I'm so delighted that you found my show. My podcast is dedicated to encouraging women to be more bold, confident, and secure in their work and femininity. I've had the privilege of bringing on many outstanding women who share their journeys, stories, and successes with us. I believe women should embrace their God-given gifts and abilities without the entanglements of fear, comparison, or past mistakes. As a wife, business owner, and mom of 2 boys, one with Down syndrome, I have found such joy in the community of supportive women. My prayer is that this podcast elevates each person who listens and inspires a closer walk with God. Now, let's get to it, friends. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the show today. I just love this guest that I'm about to bring on and some of the stuff we're going to dive into. I'm so honored to bring on my friend Michelle. Michelle, welcome to the show. I'm so looking forward to our conversation because I know you, but I didn't know so many different parts of your story, and I can't wait to get into all of that. But first, I would love for you to just kind of share with our listeners, who is Michelle and what's a little bit of your background?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Michelle Berndt. I live here in Dallas, Texas. And first and foremost, I'm a Christian. I always say I'm a God-loving mother, and a wife and a sister and a daughter. And on the side, VP of sales for OneShare Health, which is a healthcare sharing ministry. So I'm very blessed that God gets to be a part of my life in every capacity, even at work. And I am a cancer survivor, 4th generation at that, stage 3, and was Mrs. Texas International. And we own a zoo.
Oh, cool.
We have 30 chickens, 3 dogs, 2 cats, and a rabbit.
Oh my goodness. I absolutely love that. Well, I actually was just in Dallas this past weekend. I didn't realize that you were for whatever reason, I did not make that connection.
Yeah.
Next time I am in Dallas, girl, we're getting together for coffee in person. But anyways, besides that fact, okay, I don't even know where to start. Okay. Miss Texas. Tell me how that happened. How fun and how exciting for you. I can totally see that.
Yeah, it was 2013, but to give you a little bit of context, in 2012, I went through stage 3 breast cancer, but obviously still here and thriving.
Oh, wow.
And when it was done, it was pretty aggressive. The year went by so quick. I went through a bilateral mastectomy, then chemo, then radiation, then a hysterectomy, which thank gosh I already had my 2 babies. And then after a year, everyone said, you need to calm down. You just need to take a chill and just sit. And I'm like, that doesn't work for Michelle Berndt. And so I'm like, you know what? I just want to show women that these obstacles that happen in life do not define us. Because at that time, I was really struggling with what makes me a woman. I had lost all my long, brown, beautiful, curly hair, which grew back straight. I lost my eyelashes. I had some fingernails that fell off during chemo. And of course, I did not have any more breast. And so it's like, I don't have breasts. I don't have hair. I don't have ovaries. Like, what makes me a woman? And then I'm like, that's not what beauty is about. Beauty is all internal, and God made me exactly how he wants me, still to this day. And so I'm like, you know what? I'm going to show women, go get it. So I, in March 2013, competed completely bald with a wig on that was donated to me. And during swimsuit competition, I had bandages on because I had just had a hysterectomy a couple weeks before, and I won. And so the whole year was just traveling the nation, sharing my story of, we got to find a cure for cancer. And we do carry the gene in our family, and knowing your family history, and that, a crown is not me. This is me, internal. And so it was amazing, but it was the quickest 2 years of my life, from going from stage 3, I got to fight this and I got to live, to thriving with a crown on.
That is phenomenal. Like I didn't realize, first off, just going through that kind of a health scare is, I cannot imagine the emotional and physical and just everything, that toll that it took on you. But to pivot from that into, and it wasn't just like the competition or the, that title that I'm sure you were after, but it was so much deeper than that. And like you said, your message became what defines a woman, and what defines not just a woman, but what defines me. And that is just so beautiful, Michelle. Like, how inspiring that you were able to turn something like a tragedy that it happened to your life into something so beautiful. So I love that you won, and it's so deserving. Like, that's amazing.
It was fun. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And some of my biggest supporters as women were my competitors. And that says a lot, right? I mean, they became some of my best friends, and some of them even got breast cancer down the road. But it was
Wow.
one of those things that sometimes when you survive a really bad car accident or a really bad disease or divorce, or, you just have a lot of trauma in your life, you think, what's on the other side? How do I make it through this? Why does this stuff happen to me? Or why did God chose me to survive the accident and not the person sitting next to me? Or why did I survive cancer, but not my grandmother and my great grandmother? And it
Wow.
kind of helped me find my new purpose in life. Because I always say, when you go through cancer, there's two lives. There's the first life your parents gave you, and there's the second life God gives you, and it's so much better than the first. And so I had
Wow.
to redefine my purpose, refine myself, and just kind of change my focus in life, because
Yep.
it was a game changer.
Yep. Absolutely. And I love the word that you just used about redefining, because I think so often when we go through things in life, we feel like it does define us. And even when it comes to where we think we're heading in life, our, like, what we want to accomplish, and where, all of the things that we envision for ourselves, right? It's okay to come to that point, and whether it's by choice or if something happens to us, to give ourselves permission. Okay, this is going to have to change, and I need to look at it differently now, because this is where I'm at. And you allowed yourself to accept that. And you really, sounds like you moved more into just embracing, okay, this is where I'm at, and I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to make the best of it. And I know there's, when we had kind of preparing for the episode, you mentioned something about lemons. And I've always heard the whole thing with, if life gives you lemons, you make lemonade, but you took it so much deeper and said, God created the lemons.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, that is like a whole different deep perspective on the things that happen in life. You got to remember who is in control of it all, even the good and the bad.
Yes. And I think even taking a step long back in time, I've been watching The Chosen. I absolutely love The Chosen TV show. And we think of heaven as perfect because it is, but we have to go back even before that, when Jesus walked this earth and was human just like us.
Yep.
And he went through probably more than we could ever imagine. And his disciples were right next to him. And that is your circle, right? His circle was his disciples and his heavenly Father. And in our circle is our support system. So I always tell people, it's okay not to be okay. I may look like on a good day I have it all together, but there are days, even 12 years later, that I have a friend that's diagnosed with cancer, and I cry with them because it brings back so many emotions. And it's okay to be mad at God. There were times during my cancer journey I was mad at him, and I had so many questions that still to this day aren't answered, because the answers are too powerful for me to handle. So he handles that for me. So there are things that he doesn't want us to have the answers to, because we're not strong enough to handle them. And so it's okay to not be okay, right? There's pain and there's frustration and there's so much turmoil that comes with trauma. That's okay, as long as you don't let it define you. It's what you do with it that defines you.
Yes, amen to that. Absolutely. So when you, Oh, there's those doggies you were talking about. It's so funny. I love it.
3 dogs.
Hey, girl, when the urge strikes, they just let it all out.
I know.
How fun,
Sometimes
though.
I'm on a conference call and I'll be sitting outside enjoying the weather and they're like, I'm sorry, ma'am, is that a rooster in the background?" And I'm like, "It sure is."
So, tell me about that? Do you live on a farm, or do you just have like kind of a homestead situation going up?
Yeah, so we live in Midlothian, which is like an hour south of Dallas. So like
Okay.
it's not a farm like people think about, but we call it our zoo. Like literally we have a sign that
Yeah.
says the burnt zoo. Um
Oh,
so my husband and I grew up in Iowa on farms. And so we
okay.
just wanted animals, and it's kind of a thing in Texas. Like if you don't have
Yeah.
chickens, you shouldn't be living here.
I
And I
love it.
just keep adding and adding and adding. And my husband has kind of warned me, if you bring home goats, we're going to talk.
Right. He's like, I draw the line with goats.
Yes. Yes. So, but I love
So
animals.
fun. Yeah. Do you find that it is therapeutic for you, just having that?
So sorry. It is. I have a sanctuary in my backyard, and animals are just so therapeutic to me. They're amazing. Like my chickens, people actually think that chickens are very dumb. They are one of the smartest animals out there, and they are our pets. They are all domesticated.
Wow.
So like our chickens will let us pick them up. If I'm out reading a book, they'll come and like snuggle in next to me. Like the
Oh
most
my
amazing
goodness.
thing is our animals live in harmony. So the dogs, the cats, the rabbits, and the chickens can all be in the backyard together, and none of them try to harm one another. And our neighbors are like, "How do you do that?" Like our dogs would eat the chickens, but they all
Yeah.
grew up together and they live in harmony. And I'm like, if
Oh
animals can do this,
my god.
so can humans.
Yes, right? Like, this is like the perfect world. Like, I love that.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
it really makes a lot of sense, just that sounds wonderful. I
It
love
is.
that.
Yeah.
Um, so okay, was him backing before all of these things. Talk to me about what was life growing up in Iowa for you, and what was your dream as a little girl? What did you want to grow up to be?
Yeah. So I'm a singer. And so growing up, we grew up in a small house. My brother and I, 7 years apart. He was older. In fact, today is his 50th birthday. So happy birthday to him.
Oh,
And
love it.
we were made very early on to be hard workers. I mean, I think my brother and I had jobs by the age of 14. And that's majority of Iowa. Like there's farmers and everyone's kind and everyone takes care of each other as neighbors, and you are hardworking and because you have to be. And so I had very strict parents that raised me to do what's right by Christ and to always put others first before ourselves. And they are the most amazing parents ever. And then we went to private school, my brother and I, in college. And so we both graduated college. Everyone stayed in Iowa, but my husband and I. And so he is a chiropractor, went to Palmer Chiropractic. And growing up, you had a swimming pool and the county fair. And maybe if you went to the library, that's it, right? Like, and Dairy Queen. Dairy Queen was like a night
Oh,
out.
how cute.
But when he
Mhm.
graduated, he's like, I want to see the world. Like, is this where we
Yeah.
want to get married and raise our kids? And I'm like, me too.
Mm,
So we moved
mm.
to Texas in 2010.
Wow.
And I literally have a shirt that says, I wasn't born here, but I couldn't get here fast enough. We
Oh,
love
how cute.
Texas. Love it.
Oh, yes. What's not to love about Texas? It's
Yes.
just a big that. And I love the really cool thing about Texas too is like if you go to East Texas, it's got more of like the tropical Florida palm tree vibe. And then up north, you have a little bit more of the seasons. And then if you
Yeah.
keep going over, you run into more of like the desert and you start seeing cactus. And so in one state,
Yes.
so much terrain differences. I mean, Texas is so big.
It is.
It's like,
It's
wow.
they joke, but it's true. It's like Texas is its own country. And so like
Yeah.
we joke about it internally, but then people are like, well, that's kind of true.
Yeah, it is. It's true. So you
Yes.
landed in Texas and just started a whole new life. I absolutely love it.
I did. And it um in the past, gosh, we've been here 14 years now this October. It's been rough. We've had our spouts, like, we love Texas, but life happens. And you and I
Mm-hmm.
were talking about that people always say it comes in threes, and it did for me. So we moved here in 2010, and then I went through breast cancer in 2012, 2 years later, and we had no family here at
Oh,
all. So my
wow.
entire support system was back home.
Yeah.
And then after I was through breast cancer and went from surviving to thriving, I like to say, about 5 years ago, my husband and I just went through a season of life that was tough.
Hey friends, sliding in here really quick to talk to you about OneShare Health. It is a Christian healthcare company that is such a phenomenal option for those of us who are looking for health insurance but kind of want to think outside the box when it comes to that coverage. This is a product that I have looked deeply into and I personally use, endorse, and share with other people, and has blessed so many families like ours. The rates are phenomenal, the coverage is amazing, and I just love what they stand for and the integrity behind the company and the products. So, if you're a family, a business owner, or an individual that is looking for health insurance options that are outside of what you find in traditional, like through the ACA or other types of venues, I want to encourage you to check out OneShare Health. It's super easy to enroll, and I can share the link in the show notes for you so that you can easily access different types of plans. And if you need help, just remember I am here to answer any questions that you have. So give it a try, check it out, and I hope to be that resource for you in this realm. So thanks for listening, guys.
And it wasn't that one specific thing happened. It's just seasons happen in marriages. And it was a
Yeah.
season that was hard because we didn't fight right. I don't even
Mm-hmm.
think that it was we weren't communicating right. We just never learned to fight right, because you're going to have arguments. You are. And it's how do you end those arguments? How do you move on from those arguments? How do you learn from those? We just went through a really rough season, and we've been married 16 years this June. And so questions pop in your mind like, am I married to the right person? Like, why is this season happening? And
Mm-hmm.
of course, this is when Satan works his best magic, and things pop in your head like, well, maybe this isn't the person for me. And maybe the grass is greener on the other side. Maybe someone wouldn't fight with me like this. That's
Right.
what Satan's meant to do. When you
Yeah.
have just 1 ounce of doubt or negativity in your life, he will multiply that. And
Yes.
so here we are, happily married. We made it through it. We were not too shy
Wow.
to ask for help and get some counseling. In
Yeah.
fact, the past 4 years have been the best years of our marriage out of 16 years. But that
That's
was number
wonderful.
two.
Wow.
And then number three, last May, I'm living on top of life. I've got this wonderful job, this beautiful family. We got through cancer. We beat this bad season of marriage in our life. And my dad collapsed and was on life support. And we all pretty much felt like we were going to say our goodbyes. His heart just stopped. And they still to this day don't know why his heart stopped.
Wow.
We could do a whole podcast just on this, because there's so much biblical things. Like, when they shocked his heart to bring him back to life, it took 7 times. And 7 is mentioned in the Bible like
Mm.
777
Yeah.
times.
Right.
And like, just there's so
Huh.
much. But what
Yeah.
we thought was going to be a month later, planning a funeral and, just how are we going to live without our dad? He literally walks out of the hospital and it's like nothing ever happened. And these three things rocked me to my core,
Mm-hmm.
in more ways than I
Wow.
could ever imagine. And
Yeah.
yet I'm stronger today than I was.
Wow. I mean, I'm kind of listening to you talk. I mean, you mentioned about the threes and how they started off in such a tragic way, but it's also like they became three extremely like pivotal points in your life though that you came out on the other side in a better way.
Yep.
Like in a totally like a transformation,
Yes.
like going from your health and what that did to your perspective on life and the lives of other women that you wanted to encourage and support now that you probably wouldn't have had the same perspective if you hadn't gone through that. And then your marriage. And I want to pause right there. On that part, you talked about fighting right. I've never heard anyone say that. What does it mean to fight? Like, isn't fighting just wrong in general? Like, how do
No.
you fight right? I mean, obviously in marriage there's conflict, but I really would love for you to expound on that.
Yeah, because people are just saying the marriage didn't work out for anyone, not just us. The marriage didn't work out because they never learned how to communicate. There's absolute truth in that. But there's so much more to that. When you fight dirty, your marriage becomes dirty.
Hmm.
And so when you are trying to get the last word in, when you are
Yep.
trying to prove you're right, you're not even thinking about the person in front of you. And we got to the point that we were like, what are we even fighting about? We had forgot. We were so enthroned with who is right, who's going to get the last word in, and you're always coming at me, and blah, 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 that we don't even know what we were fighting about or
Yep.
who we were fighting for.
Right. Wow.
Your kids are your everything. And my husband and I often talk about this when we do Bible studies and just really dig in. Sometimes we put our kids first because that's what parents do. We love our kids. But in reality, in the Bible, marriage is mentioned more often than kids because
Yep.
when you marry, you become one. You
Right.
don't die with your kids by your side, you die with your
Yep.
spouse by your side.
That's
And
right.
so we talk about, the importance of when is the last time we put just each other first. And
Mm.
so in speaking with the Christian family counselor, it was just so eye opening and really disappointing in myself and for him that we're like, how have we let it get to this point? Like, how are we so selfish that we put ourselves above our spouse, but also above Christ? Because Christ had you meet that person for a reason. He
Right.
was there when you gave your vows and said, I do, and became one. And
Mm.
so we learned that maybe we need to take, because we're both hot headed, typical saleswoman, I'm hot headed, right? We had to step away. Like I'm really hot and heavy right now. Like I need to take a breath. I need to collect my thoughts before I spew something out of my mouth that shouldn't have been
Hmm.
said or that I didn't even mean.
Yep.
But we don't brush it under the rug. We come back to it. And also not cutting each other off. Because you're like,
Hmm.
it's just back and forth. And
Yeah.
pretty soon it's like, I don't even know what I wanted to say because we've been fighting for so long.
Yeah.
And so we have learned to pause in a fight or a disagreement or an argument, whatever it may be. There's different levels. I get that. What are we fighting for? Is it worth fighting about? And
Mm.
can we even come to a solution right now during this conversation?
Wow. That is so good. So good. I love all of this so much. And so many truths and all of these words that you just said. I reflect back to even like my own marriage for my husband and I, it will be 14 years in May. And I remember, like you said, I think it's very important first and foremost for people to understand that there are seasons. There's and the Bible talks about the seasons. There's
Yes.
the times where there's been an abundance of rain and everything is, I'm paraphrasing this totally, and everything is green and things are bearing fruit. And then you go through the times where there's the storms and the drought, and there is a season and a rhythm to everything. And marriage especially, I feel like we feel that because of the way God designed it. And over time, that unity, you don't just get married, you say your vows, and all of a sudden you're one flesh. I truly believe that happens over time. And the
Yes.
more time that you spend together, yeah, I told my husband this the other day. He had gone through a very difficult family situation. And I told him, I said, your pain, I feel your pain. You can, try to hide it. He's always the happy-go-lucky type person that if no one else would know that, but I can see that in his eyes and feel that in my heart so strongly. And I told him, you don't have to mask that with me. I feel your pain. And what the things that you're going through, your battles are my battles and vice versa, and that is the beautiful thing, but it can also be a very hard thing because we are still two different people. So when he is going through pain or something very, deep and personal in his life, his way of resolving that is going to look differently than mine. And I think sometimes that is where the clashing can come in, because you're two different people trying to navigate a circumstance that you're both going through together. And like for you, going through an enormous amount of stress with your health and, the different things that you were going through, it does take a toll on a marriage. And conflict and fighting is going to happen. And I remember so vividly a season that everything you just said that we felt like the fighting became more often. We were arguing about everything and anything. And those are the moments, where it's like all those doubts. It's like, and Society today has made everything so easy to where if you go through anything hard, it's like, okay, I'm done. I'm out. I notice like even our children, these days, my son, there was like this art project that we were working on together. And it was something so small as he was trying to glue something and it wouldn't stay on. And he's like, I'm done. He wanted to chuck the whole project. I'm done. It's not working out. I don't want to do this anymore. And I thought about it. And the easy thing for me was just to be like, okay, yeah, let's forget it. I don't feel like trying to deal with you getting cranky and you don't want to do this anymore. And then I thought there's such a bigger lesson here. And I looked him in the eye and I said, no, I know it's not working out the first couple times, but we're going to keep trying. And you're almost done with this and it's going to look beautiful. And even if we have to do it a different way. And I went in and I got a different type of glue. And I said, we're still going to do this and we're going to make it work. Because there's such a big principle in that is not giving up when it's hard.
Yes. And it's the word that I use so much is grace, right? And I know that the word is used often, but this is tough to say and hard for some to hear, but a lot of times, and we are guilty of this too, we let Satan in our home more than we let Christ. Because when you are fighting and when you are arguing and doubting and questioning everything, that is Satan, right? Like he wants you to think your marriage won't work and that someone will treat you better and that the grass might be greener on the other side. And my husband and I grew up Christian and we called ourselves Christian. But one thing I realized is when we got married, we were in love with each other. We weren't in love with Christ together. And you can't just follow Christ alone. You follow Christ as a marriage and a family. And plus, that's what your kids go after, right? Like what you do is what your kids do.
Yep.
And sadly enough, although, those first, 10 years of our marriage were good, they weren't great because Christ wasn't the center of our marriage. And now he is.
Yep.
And I kind of get mad because I'm like, we missed out on so much because now we love God together and it's beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when he's the center of everything, funny how everything works out for the best. We still have arguments, but he's the center and it works out.
Yeah.
So sometimes you just have to stop and think like, am I allowing this negativity in my home? Am I allowing Satan to be a stronghold in my home instead of allowing Christ to come in and fix these things that we're not capable of fixing?
So I wish I could literally just put this on a book right now and reread this later. So good, Michelle. So good. I really appreciate too that you are able to share all of this so openly to help other people, because there are a lot of marriages And I've been seeing this so much and and I see the struggle and I know that it's hard. It's not an easy, it's not a cakewalk. It's not a Hallmark movie.
It's not meant to be.
It's not, it's
Yeah.
truly not. And it is very hard. And I think it's important to recognize that it's going to have its hard times. But one thing you said was so key, and it's when your focus is not centered upon God, and you're not moving towards where that's the goal, and you're walking together towards that goal, and you're both going two separate directions. That is where it becomes so much harder to stay together.
Yes.
Because the further that you grow apart, it's almost like you picture two hands where you're holding hands. And if you've ever held hands with someone and something comes in between, so you have to let go of the hand and you have to go further around, and you're like, how do I reconnect? Like, like those newlyweds, it's like, and you watch them,
Yes.
and you're like, oh my gosh. But I mean, the more things that start to come between you is you have to get that stuff out of the way. And
you have to.
In order to resolve conflict, you have to come to an agreement. And even in nations, like when there's nations at war, what happens is the war continues and continues and continues until there's an agreement and you make peace and you figure out a solution. Like, let's figure this out in a way that we can move forward in unity and there's peace. And
Yes.
Peace in a marriage is so beautiful. It is so comforting, and it's so worth going through the conflict because, like you said, when you get on the other side, it is more beautiful than ever, and you start to experience marriage differently. And it's not just about two people. You fall in love. You do it's like a monotonous, almost like the thing that you do. It becomes an experience, and it becomes where you're like, oh, wow, now I'm starting to understand, what all the thought that God put into all of this. He actually compares Jesus and his church as his bride. Yep. So there's a very spiritual connection to marriage as well. And a lot of references to that in the Bible. So it, in a sense, it also really gives you a different glimpse in your relationship with God as well, which is also so beautiful.
Yeah. Do you ever have everyone has vision boards at the beginning of the year and like quotes for the year? I always have a word. And my word this year is transformation. Because when I think of the three things, in fact, sometimes I want to write a book about the three things I went through because it's like stuff happens, put on your lipstick and get out of bed.
I love that.
Right? Like,
yeah,
it's kind of the title I want in my book, but
you should totally do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, I'm trying to let these things transform me. And then when I really started to think about it, I'm like, there's so much around this because we get one chance on this earth. You have one body, take care of it, right? Like your life, whether it be 6 months, 30 years, or 103 years, this is your one chance on life before you get to heaven. And when you think about what the purpose of that is, it is to transform yourself to be the best Christian that you can be as the child of God to then transcend to heaven.
That's right.
So how are you spending your time? And that's tough, man. I still struggle with this because it's like, I do want to get promoted and I do want to move up the ranks at work. And I do want to have a lot of friends and be a social butterfly. But that does not matter when I get to heaven. And so how am I transforming? Because at the end of the day, all that matters is heaven, and keep your eyes on the prize.
That's right.
And so I really lack in some of those areas, and I'm trying to focus on that. Although those three really hard things happened to me, have I forgot about them? No. But am I still using those to transform me into who Christ wants me to be? I got some work to do.
That's so true. That's so good. And, something else I think, you mentioned about this life, and I think there's a scripture that says to lay up for yourself treasures in heaven. And I always used to wonder, what does that mean? how do you lay up treasures in heaven?
Mm.
And I think, maybe it's just because I'm getting older and, like you start to get wiser, but you start, it's like you start to understand.
Yeah.
And that's where the knowledge starts to come in. And I feel like when you're laying up treasures in heaven, I look at it as the seeds that you're sowing, the lives that you're touching, the people you're winning over to Christ through your conversation that you may not even know about, through your life as a living testimony.
Yes.
And I love that word living, and his word is so alive, and so is that testimony. That is an action, like you said, getting up every day, no matter what, put your lipstick on and just face the day.
Yes.
It may look like it's going to suck in so many ways,
yes.
but
And
you
it
know
might.
what? It might, and we all experience it in different ways. But the important thing is our perspective. And that isn't easy. And that's something that we get better at. We practice every day. I mean, it's not like you were just born like, oh, you knew one day I'm going to have cancer and one day I'm going to have a major thing happen where I feel like, I thought I was going to lose my dad. And here you have more time with him. But we don't know all the things that are going to happen in our life.
No.
You just don't.
But he does.
He does.
He
exactly.
does. And
right.
He has a plan. And, I have 2 books I've read recently, and I just have to share this with you because they transformed me. See, it's my word.
Yes. That is such a good word.
Right. One of them is The 5 People You Meet in Heaven by Michelle Berndt. Oh my goodness. It talks about when you get to heaven and, you start meeting all these wonderful people all in white. Life is so loving and perfect and it's heaven. It's miraculous that these people tell you how you affected them in their life, but you don't even know you met them or remember meeting them.
Wow.
And they tell the stories of how you, Rachel Earp, made a difference in their life. And maybe one of the reasons they're in heaven, who knows? So that was one book. And then the other one is, I think her name's Lisa Turkish, but it's Not Supposed to Be This Way.
Yeah.
That is a must.
That was,
a must.
I had read that book and I was in tears so many times in that book because you could feel, And I truly feel like that is a phrase that many people can relate to. And we've all probably said many times, like, it wasn't supposed to be this way. It wasn't supposed to happen this way. Or I wasn't supposed to, I've said that so many times in my life.
Yeah.
And, but at the end, it was supposed to be that way.
Yes.
And
I loved it.
It's so good.
There's a quote in there and it says, "What if these detours were the actual path you were meant to take?" They're not detours.
So good.
They are the roadmap of your life to get you to right now. And I'm like, wow, because we're like, but why me? Why this? Why now? Instead of, yes, now. This is God's purpose. Like, bring it on. I can do this with you by my side. And granted, it's easier this said than done. I struggle with this, but those 2 books I just really were eye-opening for me, especially the It's Not Meant to Be This Way. After these 3 things, I'm like, so no more will happen, right? Like, I've been through the 3 hard things. No more will happen, when in reality it will. And God's making me stronger to be able to handle those things.
Yeah.
And, you and I talked about one of the quotes I disagree with, and it's okay if you disagree with me, but people always say, it's going to be okay, Rachel. People, God will never give you anything you can't handle. But that's not true. And that's not in the Bible. He will 100% give you things you can't handle because that's when you need him. And that's when he shows up. And that's where he does all these miracles that you have seen performed in the Bible and on a daily basis around you.
Yes.
So get ready because bad things will happen, but God is good.
Yep. Oh my gosh. I love that. And it reminds me, have you ever seen the movie it's called Don't None Go With Me?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So it's such a very similar theme to what you were saying, but it's about this young girl. It's based on a true story, actually. So all of the circumstances actually happened to this young woman. And it was set back during one of the world wars. And I don't want to spoil the movie, but the thing that really I loved was leading up towards it kind of ties into what you were saying earlier about that book about heaven. At the end of her life, she goes through a lot of things. And at the end of her life, some friends of hers she was 80 years old, and they wanted to throw her this surprise birthday party. And she shows up not knowing, and so many people were in the room that she didn't know. And she was so confused, like, who are these people? And all of these people came up and said, you said a kind word to me when I was a little girl, and I never forgot all these people were telling her all of the ways that she had touched their life, and the overwhelm that was on her face, and the shock and the surprise and like the emotions just really made you think about how many interactions that we have with people and on a daily basis that could be either really good or really bad, like you get in a bad mood when someone cuts you off, or, you're on the elevator and you're on your way up and they're coming down, and you look, and eye contact that we make with so many people, and I've been working really hard to just finding something nice to say to someone. And if I'm passing them and I can just say, hey, you look so nice today, or smile, and then seeing them smile back when they look like they're stressed out. And, and as I started practicing that, it really made me think so differently about all of the moments in my life that I am so consumed with myself. And all I'm looking at is I'm late, or, oh, I'm so annoyed because my flight got delayed, or, all of these things that we just make such a big deal about.
Don't
and then
matter.
There's someone sitting next to me. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And then there's someone sitting next to me that is going through the depths of despair. And I don't even notice that they're slumped over, or that they have tears in their eyes, or the stressed out mom that's trying to keep her kid quiet, or, just so many things that we could say one or two words, they could totally change the course of their day. Yeah. And I really started thinking deeply, and I thought, that's what I want to be known for. I want to be remembered as that person. And I think if we all practice that, and we practiced it in our marriage and with our children and our family, like, don't make life all about yourself.
Yeah.
We're in this life, we're in this world together. Yeah. Whether we want to, we all have our own path, but we are in this together. We're running this race. And
we got one shot.
I started, yes. And I started realizing how often I was even doing that at home. Like, storming through the kitchen mad because blah, blah, blah happened, and then taking it out on my kids, or snapping at my husband. And then we get into an argument, and you really look at the little things. It's like, oh my gosh, like, what the Lord must think when
interesting. I know, it snowballs. That is the best word for it. It snowballs. And it's, you got me thinking, not only am I trying to transform myself, but you got me thinking also, how am I transforming others? Right? Because our job is literally to build disciples. How are we doing that? Right? But that's really good, Rachel, because how you affect someone else is so interesting. There was a lady, her name was Betty, when I was going through, and I'll never forget her name because that was my grandmother's name. So to put it into context, my great grandmother died of cancer, breast cancer. My grandmother died of breast cancer. My mom survived breast cancer. My aunt survived breast cancer. I had breast cancer, and I have a daughter. I pray she never gets it. So very hereditary in our family. And so I was just going through a really rough time because I'm the youngest in my family to go through it. I'm 43 now, but at the time I was 30. And I was sitting in a chemo session, 4 hours. No one else in this room was even 20 years close to my age. I mean, we're talking older people. And I'm just like, this is so unfair. Like, I don't even have someone my age to talk to. Like this, I should be moving up the ranks in corporate America, or having the best newlyweds with my husband, and enjoying my new baby at home that I couldn't even hold because I had drainage tubes. And probably the medication and the mood, but I just kept crying and crying. It was one of those days I couldn't stop. This lady next to me, her name was Betty. She said, "What's wrong, sugar?" Because she's from Texas, right? What's wrong, sugar? And I said,
Oh,
I don't even know. I can't stop crying. She says, let me share something with you. And I said, okay. And she says, you're going through chemo so that this never comes back. All these people around you are going through chemo so they can live one more day.
what?
And it was
Oh,
just, she was so right. And it was like God sent an angel.
mm,
Crazy, crazy story. I laughed with every time I went, I saw the same people there because when you go, it's like, 2 months, 3 months. I had 8 rounds of 4 hours. And so you kind of get to know people. You see the same people all the time.
yeah.
I never saw Betty again, but I saw everyone else. And when I asked the nurse, they're like,
Mm,
I don't know of a Betty. I'm like, was this an angel?
what?
like,
Oh
like,
my goodness.
and,
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it was or wasn't, but I mean, it was
Right.
just like, wake
Hmm.
up and pay attention to what's around you because these things will rear their heads, bad and good, for a
Hmm.
reason. And you got to be present enough in life to see them. And that transformed me that day. Like,
Oh my
I'm like, you are
goodness.
so right. Like, I am thankful to live another day, to fight this battle, to raise my children, watch my brother turn 50, my dad be a miracle, like my daughter go to prom.
Hmm.
Life isn't as bad as what we feel and think sometimes. And we spend so much time worrying about all the bad stuff. We forget to thank God for what's good.
Amen. Amen. So true. That's like a life-changing few moments that, like what those words. And I think of how that can apply to any of us,
Yeah.
going through something like that because you, and rightfully so, you were going through a horrific thing that most of us don't go through. So I can only imagine how that must have felt and how alone that you must have felt too, with your family far away and, a little baby and just thinking what is going to happen to my life? And then here you have someone so much older
Yep.
who their thought process is, can this just give me a few more hours or another day? That is, I think if we could remember that more often in the things that we go through, which
Yes.
it's not an overnight thing.
No,
it is,
it's not easy.
it's not easy. It's not it's just, we're humans.
Mhm.
We're humans and we feel and we're in it. And when you're in it, it's hard to see that outside perspective. And that is the beautiful thing about when God brings these people to you at that moment and that kind of exactly ties into what I was saying is if you can look at the person next to you and even in that situation, like, well, what does this look like for them?
Yeah.
Or maybe there's something I can say that could just strengthen them. I love that you guys had that moment and
Yeah.
that you never forgot that. And here you are sharing it with all of us. That is powerful because
Yeah.
now you're sharing it and someone listening might be going through, if that, whoever you are, if you're listening to this and you're hearing it, I hope that it comforts you and just sinks into your heart because you're not alone.
You're not, and you never
You're
will
not
be.
alone.
Even if
Yeah.
you have, I'm very blessed that I have an amazing support system. But even if you are someone, and my heart goes out to you that you don't have a strong support system, you feel very alone right now. You're not, because even if you have no support system, you have Christ. And there's so
Mhm.
many things that we can say we have in common. Like we all have issues, right? We all have things that we struggle with, trauma in our life. I may have had cancer. You may have had a divorce. I may have
Yeah.
had a dad that literally died and came back to life. And you may have lost all your grandparents. Like, I may have an illness. You may have a child with an illness. So
Yeah.
we all have things in common, yet different. But the one thing we have that's not different is Christ. He loves us all equally. Sin is
Mm.
sin, trauma
Yeah.
is trauma,
Right.
and Christ is Christ. He is
Mm.
consistent. We are not consistent, but he is. And
Yeah.
so you got to remember there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And I know it's hard, but just keep saying it until it's just embedded in you. And so if you are struggling right now, I want to tell you personally, you too have a light at the end of the tunnel, and you will get through it, and it will
Yeah.
be tough. And then you're going to be sitting on this podcast sharing your story.
Yes. Yes.
So, and that's what it's
Love
about.
that. I love
What's on
that.
the other side?
Yes. So they kind of thinking about that. So besides zookeeping, what else do you do? Like, what do you do now after coming through all of that? Like, what do you do now?
Yeah. So a lot of my, I work at OneShare Health, VP of Sales. And so we're a healthcare sharing ministry. So I'm very, very busy with that. So if you're ever looking for affordable healthcare, check us out. But just being a mom, I'm going through a personal season in my life. We just started doing college visits with my daughter. She'll be a senior in the fall. And it's just so hard. I'm like,
Oh my gosh.
it's going so quick, and my son's going to be a freshman, so freshman and senior,
Wow.
and she's going to junior prom, and she has her license, and it's just like everything is happening so quick. And so I'm going through a season of my life that's like make every single moment count, which I should have been doing all along. But
Yep.
I think it was for any time for that to happen to my dad, the time it happened was brilliant, because with all this stuff happening with my kids and them almost getting ready to leave the nest, it brought everyone closer together. Like they want to spend more time with their grandparents. I want to go home to Iowa and spend more time with my parents, which I wasn't always able to do or made the time to do. Now we will have family movie night. We will eat at this dinner table together, even if it's 8:30 at night. So these things happen for a reason, and I'm starting to all see it trickling. And the timing, while not great for me, was perfect for Christ.
Yeah.
Because look at it now. It all laid out magically. And so just really trying to focus on being the best parent I can be, which is hard because I wasn't born with a lot of patience.
You're getting that. That's what this is teaching you, though, right?
Yeah. Hopefully.
That's hard. I mean, I can imagine that's a very, those are like the big stages in your children's life that like, you know how you have like those big milestones, like you're in such, and especially with it being the later end of those precious years that you do have with your children at home, you know, where they're starting to spread their wings. And I'm sure that is a very emotionally like roller coaster ride for a mom, you know, like your kids, like you said, I mean, obviously to an extent, I feel like we do make our kids such an enormous part of our life that it's hard to realize like, wow, I just blinked and they're grown. They're so like, where's, you know, so it's that I can imagine how that would be difficult to navigate through sometimes.
And just questions that arise, you know, like you kind of panic yourself. Like, did I raise her to be a good Christian? Wait, I mean, is she going to take Christ to college? Is she going to read the Bible? Oh my gosh, we should have read the Bible more at night. Like just complete panic mode. When in reality, we are good parents, right? We did things right. They are Christians. They believe in God. It doesn't end when they go off to college. In fact, that's when she's just going to start finding herself. So just different milestones in life. But it is interesting as a woman to be a woman in corporate America, especially in the sales world, also a mom, also a Christian.
Talk a little bit about that. How did you end up into, I mean, so I guess let's start here. I want to ask the question, and I think most of us all want to know, like, there's a lot of different theories around Christian healthcare. And it's like, what does that look like? So, for those families maybe that are looking into it or thinking about it, or just are like, man, I don't know if I trust that route. How did you get into this? And like, what would you say to those people? Like, I'm just so curious.
Yeah. Well, I was you. So,
okay.
Yeah. I've been with the company since it opened 6 years ago. So I was employee number 6.
Oh, wow.
And and when I only came over to OneShare Health because a friend of mine who at the time was the COO of OneShare said, you got to come with me. Well, I believed in her so much because she was my mentor. I said, where are we going? And she said, OneShare Health. And I said, what's that? And she said, a healthcare sharing ministry. And I said, and what's that? I
Okay.
had, yeah, but I believed in
Oh
her.
my.
And I'm so glad I did. So, a healthcare sharing ministry is just an affordable alternative to traditional insurance. We all can agree, and it's what I was dealing with at the time, that premiums keep going up and up and up. They just don't stop. It should be unethical that they are this high. And they're making it to the point that not only people can't afford healthcare, they're just getting it. They're not getting it, period. And so there's just so much on healthcare. We could do an entire podcast on that too. But I'm like, wait, so this is a faith-based community that really believes in supporting each other, especially when it comes to health, and your pricing's up to 50% less than traditional. Where has this been?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
this is amazing. So we went from $1,300 a month on Blue Cross Blue Shield as a family of four in Texas to just over $600 a month in Texas family of four OneShare Health with the same comprehensive services. We're talking preventive, your primary care doctor, specialist, hospital surgery, maternity, cancer, all of it. And it's faith-based. How much better does it get?
Yes. Wow.
So I just encourage you to be open to at least getting a quote to see how much you could save. If you are someone who deals with a lot of health conditions, this may not be the right choice for you, and that's okay. It's not for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It is for so many people. If you just had a conversation with your spouse and you're like, well, how are we going to afford this? The premiums went up again, or I have too high of deductibles, or this doesn't even cover a lot of services for what we're paying. Please check us out. It's onesharehealth.com.
Well, I think too, you're like literally the perfect person for it because look, I mean, you came from going through cancer treatments, and so you understand the value of having coverage in place. So it's not like you just kind of blindly went into this, not even really caring that much about your healthcare coverage. Like a lot of times you'll see people that, well, what do you have? Oh, well, I don't, they don't even
Yeah.
know, like, oh, I don't know. So you truly had a major experience with having all of that stuff that is extremely costly, just to live and survive through. And then also merging into it faith. But I really am fascinated that you came into the company when it first started.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Like, and
Yeah.
I mean, I hear it's like a buzzword where you start, I hear it a lot. And I know there's even within like churches or different families or small business owners and people that are just like you said, so tired of how expensive, it is. It's so hard for families. And
It
I love
is.
that I can see that you're passionate about it. And I think that is amazing that despite, just even your story before all of this, but here you are, in the industry that you're in and enjoying it and being able to share and, your faith and like knowing that it is rooted in good things,
Yes.
that there, I think that's what I really am just so drawn to also is it's just there's a different vibe to it, a different ring to it where you kind of feel like, something like this has a bigger purpose,
Right. And
without
it makes
compromising.
sense.
Yeah,
Like you
without
have
compromising
faith,
it.
you have
Mm-hmm.
health. Why not combine those? Like God gave you both, right? Like God
Yeah,
gave you your
yeah,
body, take care of it. And so I
yeah,
I think of like this concept is brilliant. I absolutely love
yeah.
it. But I have to share something with you. Probably if you work in this industry or just in sales in general, you hear probably 5 times a day, I can't afford it. Well, let me tell you something. When it comes to healthcare, you can't afford not to have it.
Mm-hmm.
So that is
Yeah,
one thing I'm very passionate about is I don't ever want a family to be in a situation where they don't get the care they need for their condition because they can't afford healthcare
yeah,
or they put off something that if they caught it in time could have saved their life. So regardless of what you choose for your healthcare, know that there are affordable alternatives out there. And you can get a free quote any day. It's totally
yeah,
worth it.
yeah. I love that. What a surprising, like little plot twist here, and that
Yeah.
you're in sales and all the things. And, and I love that you are so knowledgeable about it. And I think people feel like in order to move into more of like a faith-based approach that they have to compromise the quality of their coverage. And it sounds like they don't have to do that with OneShare Health.
Yep.
Like you're able to
Very
have the best
comprehensive.
of both worlds and kind of feel like it's just traditional health coverage with a side of faith or, just an
Yeah.
alternative and being lower in costs too, where
Yes.
you're saving money, which is a huge relief because that is a big financial burden for a lot of people as well. Who doesn't want health insurance, but who can afford the rates? It's
I
insane.
know.
Yeah.
But on a
So,
total side note, can I just share with you how awesome it is to go to work and be able to pray? Because hear me out.
oh,
I mean, you don't mean for life to be like this, but sometimes when you go to work, you leave Christ at home. When you go to school, you leave Christ at home. When you go
yep.
out with family or friends, I get to take him with me. Like we get to pray
Oh,
before meetings.
that's
So it's just,
amazing. Yeah.
I'm right where I'm meant to be, even though life is so
Yes.
busy right now. I don't know. I need more minutes in the day,
I
but
bet. Yeah.
I just think to myself, gosh, if we took Christ to work and school with us and everywhere we go, we probably wouldn't be in a lot of the predicaments we're in this nation.
Oh, so true. So true. It's so funny you said that because and kind of pivoting back to my older son, I tell him all the time, I'm like, if Jesus were standing right next to you, and I know he's here, like you don't see him, but he sees you, like we would be so much more mindful, like if we're in the car and he was in the passenger seat and listening to who we're talking to and how we're talking to someone or what our thoughts are and just being mindful. I think it's just being mindful
Yeah.
that he lives in our hearts. And
Always.
it's wonderful to be able to feel like you can carry him with you, but you don't have to quench it or not be able to share about it and being able to acknowledge him throughout the day. What a blessing for you. Like that's
Yeah.
wonderful and so inspiring.
And the timing is amazing because, Christ is present in my life. No, I cannot deny that,
Yeah.
but I can always do better. And one thing I pray is you are in my heart, but I need you to fully submerge my heart. Like, I don't need a piece of you. I need all of you. And
Mm-hmm.
I can't do it on my own because I do forget to open the Bible sometimes. And I do forget to pray at night when I hit the pillow and fall asleep. Like
Yeah.
I'm human and I need to do better and I want to do better. But I think that starts with please fully submerge my heart with your grace. Like be present in every facet of my life.
I love that word. I love words. I feel like words are so powerful and you can literally take a one word. Like I love that your word is transformation. Like there's so much depth to thinking about them and how you can apply them into your life. And, like you said, just your heart being, submerged in
Yes.
his goodness and his grace and in his light. Because where the light is, there's no darkness, and
No.
that's what we want. We want to be walking in the light. He tells us that we are supposed to walk in the light and not in the darkness. And the only way we can do that is through complete submission to him every single day. From the moment we wake up to when we fall into bed, and pass out from exhaustion. That's all we can do.
You have done such a good job of that. I have to share with you, Rachel, and for those listening, if you do not follow her online, you need to. When I scroll in the morning, when I have my cup of coffee, I scroll. And so I always see your stuff and I'm like, your energy is contagious.
Oh,
and so
thank
I
you.
would love to see the people that talk to you in heaven about how you changed their life and you don't even remember meeting them. And I think
I
more
appreciate
people
that.
need to be like that. Like when you wake up in the light, you stay in the light.
Yes.
And so it's kudos to you because you're very inspiring. You're motivating. You're just contagious. I love your energy.
Oh, that means so much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And that truly, if that can come through on, social media, like that means the world to me. It kind of gives me that, encouragement to keep going. Because sometimes you put messages out there and you wonder, like, is this making a difference? Is this even matter? Those just big void questions that, so thank you. I appreciate it. I take those words in.
There's too much negativity. We need more positivity.
I totally agree. And this has been like such a wonderful conversation, Michelle. And I just want to thank you for telling your story and being such an open, that I really feel that openness from you, that you are open to being used however God wants to use you. And whatever opportunities, even when I was like, hey, can you come on the podcast? You're like, sure, like I've got it. And I didn't even know the depth of everything. I really had no idea. And then, hearing all of that, I'm like, wow, this was totally meant to be. So same. I really appreciate you and your beautiful heart. You're just inside and out. You shine so bright. So thank you for sharing all of that. Is there any other ways that people can follow you and continue to kind of watch your story unfold?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on social media, so you absolutely can find me on there.
Okay.
But just know that I'm praying for you, and I'm sure I've got a lot of obstacles ahead to journey on as well. But I figure if I've made it this far, I think I can handle the second half of life, right?
Yeah.
So just remember, God made lemons. God made sourness. God made obstacles, and you're going to face them, but he is right there with you. And Rachel and I are too. Like, women support women, and women pray for women, and women build each other up, and you are not alone. We are here for you, but most importantly, Christ is here for you.
Such good words. Wonderful closing words. And then, of course, too, we're going to be looking out for your book one day.
I really do want to. I really do.
I mean, or a movie. Like, I could see your whole story being a movie. Like, oh my gosh.
Well, earlier you said, what did you want to be growing up? I never answered it, but I either wanted to be the next Britney Spears because I was a singer or an actress. So it's still, even at 43, kind of a dream, but I would love to be an actress or the next pop star.
You can star in your own movie, and you can sing. You love to sing, so you can sing. Like, I can just see so much happening.
Oh, for now, I'll do karaoke.
There you go. Well, thank you again so much, Michelle, for coming on and taking this time out of your busy schedule today to share your heart with us. And I appreciate it. This has been amazing. So thank you so much.
Thank you, and God bless.
Well, friends, I just want to thank you for listening today. And if this show has meant something to you, please leave a review or rating on whatever platform you're listening to. Also, make sure you follow the show. This helps me continue bringing episodes like this where women can share their stories and link arms together. I hope you feel inspired and refreshed. Now get out there and hustle, girlfriends.